Alright, this is the Gerber Bear Grylls lockback, Scout lockback, that is. They used to sell these pretty heavily at like Walmart and places like that, just cheap. Well, mostly Walmart, outdoor stores. They were pretty heavily advertised because Bear Grylls was pretty popular at the time. The blade steel on this is 7CR17, which in my opinion is junk. It's not a blade steel. It's unbelievably soft, which, as always, means that it strops easily and it hones easily, but it's just so soft that you have to do that very, very often, which just is not worth it for me for an EDC knife. But one thing to remember is that these were marketed towards Boy Scouts, obviously being called the Scout. And so it was more of an outdoors knife, marketed as anyways. And most importantly, it was advertised as a kid's outdoor knife. So through that lens, it's not the worst thing in the world, especially because you know that a kid's just probably gonna lose it first thing, which is why it's orange. So yeah, there's that. But my review is going to be mostly from the point of view of an outdoor or of an EDC. That's kind of the lens of which I view all knives through. As an outdoor knife, just get an Ontario Rat 1 or 2. Obviously, those are going to be better. So, yeah, I'm going to review it as an EDC knife. So, the blade steel is junk, in my opinion. There's worse steels, I guess, like 3CR or the 400 series stainless that Gerber used in the paraframe. But Gerber, notoriously, their 7CR isn't the worst. Like, their 7CR is equivalent to about Kershaw's 8CR in my experience. So that's not terrible. But I just do not like it as a blade steel. I bought this thing mostly for nostalgia. But I was a Boy Scout. I was an Eagle Scout, or am an Eagle Scout, actually. So I bought it, I always kind of wanted the Bear Grylls stuff when I was a kid just because I kind of bought into the hype. But I never had any of them. I had one of the knife sharpeners, and that was it. So I actually got the last one on Blade HQ. I saw that this knife was discontinued, and I was like, that's a blast from the past. I was incredibly bored at the time, so I picked one up. I regret that. It was not worth the money. Once I opened it out of the package, I was like, wow, this thing feels a lot cheaper than I thought than it looks. In videos, it doesn't look too terrible, but this handle just feels unbelievably cheap. Like, so cheap. I can't really bend it, but it just feels terrible. Like, I don't know how to describe it. It's just squishy and not great feeling. So there's that, But I did get the last one on Blade HQ, so if you were looking for one of these, and sorry, I got the last one, unfortunately. The pocket clip is tip down only. There is no other way to mount the clip, and it's not reversible. Tip down isn't the worst thing in the world. Like, that's not a deal breaker for me, but I do prefer, for a right-handed, I prefer tip up because in the hem of your pocket, the blade is, like, say, this is your butt, that's your other end. The blade isn't pointing, like, into your open pocket with all your other stuff. If it's tipped up, then the blade will be up against the hem of your pants, and so a lot less likely to open in your pocket. That's just my preference. I feel like it's a lot safer. I've had knives open in my pocket before. I've actually been pretty severely cut. This cut was super deep. That was a Kershaw Emerson CQC 7 that opened because of the wave feature. Actually, it got pulled out of my pocket slightly by the seatbelt as I exited a truck. It opened the blade, and I rubbed my hand right past it, and it just went straight into my finger. So I've had knives open in my pocket. It's my preference that it's tip up because it sits up against the hem of your pants, and it is a lot less likely to open. That's just me, though. It's a lockback, which for an outdoor knife isn't the worst thing. Remember, it's marketed towards kids. They want it to be two-handed to close. But for an EDC knife, that sucks because you open it, like at work, I have to open and close my knives very often. So you open it one-handed, but there really isn't a great way to close it one-handed unless you press the lock back and then use like a table or something or your leg to close it. It's not the end of the world, but mid-mounted is like worlds better for that, just because it's right here. You press it, you close it on the table. This one you got to come pretty far down. It's not it shouldn't be a deal breaker for a lot of people. For me, I don't like lockbacks pretty much at all. It's not worth the little bit of extra strength that you get over some other locks to be kind of a pain in the ass to close. That's just, my opinion. So, one of the worst things about this knife is that every time you close it, I'm never going to get the camera to focus on it, but in here, this orange portion inside the handle, the blade actually slaps that. There's nothing stopping this knife from just slapping the handle when you close it. So this portion of the blade gets chipped and, or rather rolled because it's such a soft steel. It actually gets dulled by its own handle if you close it too hard. So if you use it and then you just kind of like snap it shut, it dulls itself, which is the stupidest thing ever. And that is unbelievably common on knives that should not have that happen. I mean, knives should not be slamming their perfect little apex blades right into a material that, honestly, it would not surprise me if fiberglass reinforced nylon is stronger than 7CR. That would not surprise me because it's a very soft steel, and it's so dumb. Like, why? The coating on this blade was actually a lot tougher than I thought it would be. I'm not sure what it is, but I cut into a can, which is, it's a dumb test, but I just don't care about this knife. And it actually held up really well. It's not just paint, which is what I thought it was. It may actually be some sort of like bonded coating, which is pretty cool. There's some lines. It's not really going to show up in the video, I don't think, but there's some lines here from use and up here. And then this was like actually just straight up sanding on it just because I wanted to see if it was paint. And it's not. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. It's a lot tougher of a coating. 7CR, it's stainless, like fully stainless as far as I know. So it doesn't really matter, I don't think. But it's just nice that the coating wasn't just like cheap lacquered paint that they like dip the handle in and then throw it on the assembly line. And it's serrated, which, I have no preference on serrations. Sometimes guys need it, sometimes you don't. If you don't need serrations, don't buy them. If you need serrations, get serrations. I don't know why people talk about it as if they as if they know everybody's needs for carry, But these serrations actually came like pre-chipped right out of the box. The tips of the serrations, at least this one, is broken off. And then in here, there's little microchips, which is ridiculous for like, that was chipped, like no joke, straight out of the package, which is insane. That's just indicative of like the horrible QC at the time and just the do not care attitude of Gerber. They were just pumping these things out, selling them in Walmart for moms to buy their Cub Scouts, and that's how it went, The handle is way too prescriptive in my opinion. Like, if you like this grip and this grip only, then it's the knife for you. But if you don't, it sucks because this big finger guard, this massive finger groove right there, it's not super comfortable in a lot of other grips. It's not terrible, but like in this sort of grip, like slicing upwards, that thing's just like right on your thumb. This thing's digging into the big fat part of your hand. It's just not great. There is a lot of traction. This rubber is fairly grippy, which can also be a bad thing. That thing, if the pocket clip wasn't so weak, like it's just one big continuous swoop of sheet metal, or spring steel. It's not very grippy, but if it was, that would be a pain to get out of your pocket. The thumb studs are nice and usable, they're in a good spot. It's nothing crazy. The action, because it's a lockback, and it's just, I don't even think that this is, well, this might actually be on bronze washers. That's insane. But the action's not great. It kind of sucks. It's very like stiff all the way out. There's a decent detent. It's not like, it's a very safe knife, I guess, in some ways, which, being a scout knife, that is appropriate. But all around, I fully understand why these are discontinued. They just kind of suck. It's not a good knife. If you have one, use it. I mean, at some point, it'll probably fall apart. or break. But I've also seen guys say that they've used these for years and years. You know, it just depends on how often you use your knife and the type of things you do with it. But overall, I mean, objectively, it's just a bad knife. So obviously, I would not recommend it. At the price point, there's a lot better options, surprisingly. So, yeah. The Gerber Bear Grylls Scout Lockback. Wouldn't recommend it.